while we understand the importance of having a statewide plan to tackle the problem of crime, and the importance of all the various departments and agencies of the executive branch of state government buying into the same plan, Governor Haslam and I have also talked about the fact that a lot of the solution lies within local communities. We want to do our part, but we also want to partner with local communities in helping those communities develop and implement their own plans. And a great example of that is Memphis and Shelby County, the Operation Safe Community Plan. Various state officials are very, very involved in implementing that plan. I'm involved, Commissioner Schofield, Chairman Traver of the Board of Probation and Parole, Commissioner O'Day, all of us are very involved in that process at the local level. And it's a great example of how city, county, state, federal officials can join the private sector to get behind a plan to make a community safer. So we understand that's a very important component. And what we have today are some folks from Memphis to talk about that model, how it evolved, and we're doing this because we think you might want to take a look at a similar model and determine for yourselves whether or not that might be good for your community. So what I'd like to do is have them come forward. Let me briefly introduce them. First of all, Mayor A.C. Wharton of the City of Memphis. He was elected Mayor of Memphis in October of 2009, re-elected in 2011 to a full 4-year term. Prior to serving as Mayor of Memphis, A.C. was elected Shelby County Mayor in 2002, re-elected in 2006. In that capacity, he began a number of new programs to tackle the problems of youth in our community, successfully lobbied for tougher gun laws at the state level, provided additional funding for the county's drug court, and advocated successfully for more victims' rights programs. Today as mayor, he is a strong proponent of public safety. He has continued to implement initiatives that address crime, blight, and youth violence in the city of Memphis. He serves on the Memphis Crime Commission Board of Directors and is a goal leader in the Operation Safe Community initiative. Memphis Tomorrow is an association of CEOs of Memphis's largest companies, such as FedEx, AutoZone, International Paper, First Tennessee, plus about 20 or so others. As president of Memphis Tomorrow, Blair Taylor has guided the engagement of top business leadership in addressing some of the community's most pressing challenges, including the challenge of making the Memphis community safer. Michelle Folks has a 30-year history of working with nonprofits who provide services to at-risk youth and their families. She has expertise in community capacity building, advocacy, domestic violence programs, and employment for youth residing in areas of high poverty. In 2010, she joined the Crime Commission as executive director, and she administers on a day-to-day basis the comprehensive plan for Operation Safe Community. So with that, I don't know who starts first. Who's Mayor? You're first. Okay, very good.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner, and welcome to all of you. It's certainly great to see so many familiar faces. I'll say this, as we know in politics, if you want to win, you got to feel like you're in a majority. And what this does, we know now that we're in a majority when you see this many people interested in the same cause in one room. So it's just really great to see this many folks interested in making our state, our communities a safer place for everybody. Memphis is a big, big city. It's a rambling city. They often say that in Memphis, we'd rather fight than win any day. So the point I make is that it's hard to agree on things, even when it came to fighting crime, how we were going to do it. I do a lot of work on Sundays, and it was one Sunday afternoon, and I didn't need any statisticians to tell me that things were getting out of hand. So I zipped, was it an email or a memo or a phone call, Commissioner? I've forgotten what. I called Commissioner Gibbons. I think he was moving his son off to college to a dorm or something. and I said, "Where are you?" And I told him what it was about, and I told him what I had just written. And I said, "General, you're doing your thing, the sheriff's doing his thing, Director Godwin's doing his, and everybody's, but we're never coming together." It's a very simple recognition. As a defense lawyer, I know that the criminal element is well organized. They have succession planning. They have everything. Their operations are not personality driven. They have structures. If you doubt that, just let one drug kingpin move on and somebody who was not authorized to move into his territory try to move in. You'll find out that there was a succession plan in place. But we had, unfortunately, all of our efforts were basically personality driven. A given judge didn't run for re-election or whatever, then that part of it dropped out. Chief Jailer moved on, forget about it. That new idea she had is gone. We recognized after I got Bill together, if you've ever submitted anything to Bill in writing, get ready for the red pen. Matter of fact, I gave him a book out of the Bible once and said, "Read this." He marked it up and sent it back to me and corrected it. So I sent my document over to him, and he marked it up and sent it back, and I said, "Let's keep going." The point I was trying to make is that if you put all of us in the criminal justice center per se, take your sheriff, your police director, your chief judge, you could get us in a telephone booth and still have room for a few more to get in there. The point I wanted to make, and this is what you will hear from the other speakers today, is that if you're going to be successful, that it's going to require many more folks other than the usual suspects. You've got to get outside your little, this is who I meet with every month, and bring in many more folks, as you've heard from some of the presentations here already. So what we did, I got with Bill, we got the sheriff in, got the police director in, Director Godwin, met at Starbucks in the morning, as a matter of fact, and just started, and then went to Blair. I said, "We can't fight it alone." Called Blair Taylor, let's get the business community in, let's get clergy in, let's get everybody in, but more than let's get them in, let's have a plan that goes on and on. Let's have it heavily structured so that what we're trying to do will extend beyond the career or interest of any particular individual or individuals. And that's what has sustained us over the years. We got Memphis Tomorrow. You'll hear about that business organization in just a few minutes. Higher education, school, you name it, they are involved. And there are a number of agents and victims representatives I see here this morning. In our case, it was critical to have state involvement, simply because you saw the recidivism figures that Commissioner Gibbons talked about. We can't control at the local level what goes on in Chairman Trauber's situation or Commissioner Schofield. They're coming back, so we need them, and they sit on our Operation Safe Community Board down there. And we've maintained that. The key thing is to be able to sustain your effort. You get excited when you first call a bunch of people together. All 4 or 5 TV stations show up for the first meeting. 2 of them show up for the next meeting. The third meeting, 1 shows up, and after that, nobody shows up, and your whole thing is over. But if you have a structure of committed individuals, if you're metric-based so that you can feel that progress that you're making, if you have a rigid process of analysis, so when you get off track or you're falling short, you go back and regroup and just stay the course. And that's what's helped us. Are we out of the woods yet? No, but we've made substantial progress, which you'll hear about. The structure is working. I commend it to all of you. With that, I am going to turn it over to Blair Taylor from Memphis Tomorrow. Blair.
Thank you so much, Mayor. You really set that up beautifully. That was perfect, Mayor. I'll just kind of jump right into the structure that he spoke to, the importance of really making this programmatic and systematic, and how we did that in Shelby County in Memphis. We have an organization called the Memphis Shelby Crime Commission. It's a not-for-profit 501c3 organization, And it had been in existence about 10 years when these conversations started taking place, and it was funded actually exclusively by the private sector and a lot of the folks that I'm involved with in the corporate community and philanthropic community. And it really was more focused on research and some policy advocacy. And with the advent of these conversations and Mayor Wharton's and General Gibbons at the time leadership, and really calling out and reaching out for pulling a consensus together of law enforcement, of bringing these other constituencies together to the table, we said, why not use this existing entity, kind of recast it a little bit, make sure we bring the right people to the table, actually put them on the board of directors, and kind of adjust this mission to say our new mission, the Memphis Shelby Crime Commission, is to not only establish a plan to reduce crime, but to be the organizational infrastructure, the permanent organizational infrastructure that holds all these collaborators at the table and monitors progress, supports progress, reports and communicates to the community on the progress and also on the challenges. And so really that's the sort of what the Crime Commission does and what the infrastructure is that we put in place. I'm going to take a minute now. This was established and formalized back in about 2006, which has become our baseline year for measuring our crime results. And let me mention one thing, actually. I forgot to say this about the overall infrastructure. Crime Commission is part of, and this Operation Safe Community 5-year plan became part of a larger economic growth plan for our community. And for reasons that Commissioner Haggerty really elaborated on earlier this morning about the connection between economic growth and crime, this infrastructure is called Memphis Fast Forward. It's a bigger collaborative, and it's a big strategic plan for economic growth in our community. It is led by our Mayor Wharton, Mayor Luttrell, and Memphis Tomorrow, but it has 5 areas of focus, all of which are interdependent. It's got the crime reduction focus, which is the focus of our discussion today, but it's got a whole collaborative and a plan around jobs and economic development. It's got a collaborative and a plan around talent and workforce and education. It's got a focus on government efficiency and how we can save more in government to invest in the priorities, these priorities. And then there's actually a piece on health and wellness. And I probably don't need to make the case to this group about how all of those components are interdependent and in some ways all are related to crime and crime reduction. So just wanted to give you a little bit of the broader context that this Operation Safe Community and Crime Commission is sitting within, and sort of the recognition of the connection between economic development, economic growth, and crime reduction in our community. So back to our results. Operation Safe Community, 5-year results over the past, from 2007 through 2011, which was our first 5-year plan, crime went down dramatically, more than we ever could have imagined. We had a 15-point plan. We said we're going to be one of the safest communities of our size in the nation. Our violent crime went down 22.3% over 5 years, and our property crime went down 25.5% over 5 years. So really dramatic reductions that, of course, were very encouraging and motivating. And it's hard to say exactly what made the difference. There were a lot of initiatives. There were 15 strategies, many partners involved. But one of the things that is kind of widely acknowledged to be the influencing factor, the major influencing factor, was, frankly, under Director at the time Godwin's leadership, the expansion of the Blue Crush Initiative and data-driven policing, and that has just been absolutely instrumental and continues today under Mayor Wharton's and Director Tony Armstrong's leadership, and has really been critical to these reductions. But other initiatives that have made a difference, and this is just a sampling of some of the initiatives that have been part of Operation Safe Community. Project Safe Neighborhoods, which probably many of you in this room are very familiar with, nationally recognized program, established a multi-agency team that was led by the U.S. Attorney's Office. to use federal tougher laws to prosecute local offenders of gun-related violence. Some really incredible stats on that. Nearly 19,000 cases were reviewed by the PSN team. Involved of those 5,000, actually nearly 6,000 were convicted felons, and over half of that were designated for prosecution by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Sorry, I have to catch up on some of the lingo. I get a little tripped up on some of the law enforcement lingo, but we had an incredible initiative really led out of the DA's office by General Gibbons, a mentoring-based truancy program, which in 9 middle schools, absenteeism of the participating students dropped by nearly half. The DA and the Memphis Police Department aggressively used the nuisance law to shut down more than 300 problem properties. Our domestic violence court was established, and you heard about the Family Safety Center earlier in the program this morning from General Wyrick and others. And the drug court, which I expect many of you in this room are familiar with, is the value of drug court, which providing nonviolent offenders with the option of supervised drug treatment to reduce repeat offenses and save on incarceration costs. It's very cost effective. And in 2010, less than 27% of the program graduates were rearrested, and in 2011, less than 20%. So some very good stats and results there. Kind of looking into where we are now, we're in the first year of our next 5-year plan. So we spent 2011 actually planning for the next 5 years. And as part of that, we looked at what have we done well, and obviously the suppression side of things we had done very, very well with Blue Crush and other initiatives. We had some wins on some of our intervention initiatives as well, but we said, you know, we really have got to do better sort of on the intervention, prevention, and particularly with an emphasis on youth violence reduction. So that really, as we moved into our planning for the next 5 years, youth violence reduction has become a centerpiece of the new 5-year plan. In addition, we are continuing on a lot of the initiatives that we were launched in the first plan, including data-driven policing, domestic violence, offender reentry, and problem properties and blight. There is, part of what makes this work and part of how you move something like this along is that you have performance management. And in fact, I was going to bring it up here, but you guys have in your packets a sheet that Bill Gibbons pointed out to you earlier that is a tracking sheet that says, blue, green, red, yellow, if you're behind schedule, if you're on schedule, if you're completed. We have a very similar tracking sheet, so we monitor all of our initiatives. We have team meetings to troubleshoot any of the challenges when things are getting behind or slightly behind or severely behind. And that monitoring and that sort of team troubleshooting and problem solving that's supported through this infrastructure is critical to making this go. So with that, we are going to talk about a few of the Operation Safe Community strategies that are working today and that are kind of at a priority level for us. And Mayor Wharton's going to come back up and talk for a moment about Safeways, Project Safeways, and the Memphis Shelby County Office of Offender Reentry.
I don't know whether other communities have Safeways, but what brought this about is a lot of our crime comes out of huge apartment complexes that we have throughout the city of Memphis. It's particularly difficult to patrol in those areas because you get into whether this is private property, what's this quad car doing in here, is this a dedicated street or whatever. Under your Safeways model, the owners of those complexes enter into agreements with the city and with the residents. Every vehicle has to be registered on file with the office. If a squad car comes through with one of the license plate readers and that car is not supposed to be in that complex, then the car is towed. That's just one example. There's much more to it. We are expanding that model. The owners of the complexes have agreed to a self-assessment, if you will. We'll be supplementing their funding with public funding, but it is working extremely well, not merely from the standpoint of crime suppression, but just a quality of life for the men and women and boys and girls who who live in those apartments. I will say, anybody who's got apartment complexes, you really need an intense, really focused approach on that. One size does not fit all when it comes to these huge apartment complexes. General Wyrick and I, we had one where it was just so outrageous that one thing we're doing, we're tearing down a lot of them. When it gets to the point where it's just, we can't redeem them, we have a process of having them declared a public nuisance. We have an environmental court that stays on top of them, and we basically shut them down and physically demolish them in some instances, and it is supported by the residents. Reentry, again, you heard about the recidivism numbers. It's the same thing in Memphis, if not worse. The two ways you can do with that, you can say, well, we'll just keep punishing them. I was always heard that the trouble with flogging a fool is that by the time you raise your hand to hit him a second time, he forgot why you hit him the first time. And that's what's happening. So what do? Either you can keep trying to flog them, or you can see if you can turn them into a productive member of your society. We're doing that with our reentry program, thanks to the state of Tennessee, Chairman Traube, and the funding we received on that. Individuals are not just released directly onto the streets without any kind of conditioning and training, and it is working extremely well. One thing we know, and I see Judge Norman out here somewhere, he always talks about where they're going to live. We have so many come back, and if you're doing time up here in Nashville for having abused a member of your family, they're not going to meet you at the train station. And very few other people want to meet you anywhere. So what do? You can't just keep them on the state's tab. You've got a choice. Either you can put him through conditioning to make sure here's how you get a job, here's a skill, we've got a place for you to live until you get back on your feet, or he's going to be right back through the doors real soon. A number of other programs, there's so many we have going, and I will say this. The beauty of putting together a structure, you have to have a comprehensive structure. It makes it so much easier for you to apply for and receive grants. The first thing when you evaluate a grant proposal, they want to see how you're linked up with other agencies. We have no problem in Memphis and Shelby County showing that although you may be applying for a grant for delinquency prevention, they want to know, are you hooked up with the Family Safety Center? Yes, we got that. Do you have a relationship with the police department? Yes, we have that. Do you have a relationship with the juvenile court? Yes, they're around the table. And they all sign off on it. If you've ever received grant rejection notices, one thing I would say that's the dominant reason grants are rejected in Washington and the other entities that fund some of these programs. They say insufficient linkage or whatever it is, meaning that you ain't organized down there, you're not together, that's what they're telling you. Well, we are well organized, and it opens up so many funding sources. And I'm mentioning that because many of you are probably sitting there saying, it's easy for that guy from a big place like Memphis to talk about all these programs. They've got the money. No, excuse my grammar, we ain't got the money. But we know people who do have the money, and we're doing a pretty good job of getting it from them. Some of our programs are funded by DOJ, some by the Bloomberg Foundation, some by, what's the other with the named after the lake? Casey Plow, and a whole bunch of them. So there is money out there for little towns, big cities, if you are organized. So the key is to make sure you cover everything, be creative, but be realistic, deal with the world as it is, not as you dream the world to be. When I mean that, you've got recidivism, let's just face it, hit it head on. Don't pretend that once you send them off somewhere they're going to be perfect. Don't pretend that everybody's going to cooperate with you, but show that you have ways of dealing with that, and that's what our structure does here. You heard mention of the drug court, which has been eminently successful. There are any number of other programs that we have. One is called NOVA, and these acronyms get me network for something, network, whatever it is. It says you're looking out for children who are victims of violence and who have been abused. And let me wrap it up on this. When you're as big as Memphis, you can't save your city or your county in one fell swoop. What we're doing is we're picking those target areas, and when we go in with everything. We go in with the carrot and the stick. The open drug market, I've forgotten what we call it, I've forgotten the fancy name of it. We have a program in which we identify drug dealers, drug users, and we send folks from the community to talk to them and say, hey, partner, the jig is up. Now you got a choice here. Here we've got you on tape doing these drug deals, but we think we can help you if you're going to work with us. If they come in and say, all right, I want to straighten up, we can deal with it. If they do not, many of them are indicted in federal court, or they go straight the rough way. And again, it takes that kind of cooperation between every entity, every organization involved in it. With that, I pass it to Michelle. Is that correct? From Operation Safe Community.
Well, you've heard all of these wonderful things that are going on in Memphis and Shelby County around crime prevention and crime reduction. What I'd like to share with you now are some simple steps that you could take to really replicate the model. One of the most important things is the governance. Identify or create an organization to take the lead, an agency who can be the quarterbacking agency, a backbone agency. Believe it or not, Operation Safe Community and the Memphis Shelby Crime Commission operates with a lean staff. There's only 3 of us. So you can get this work done on a small budget. 2, in governing, one of the things that you should look into is establishment of a board of directors or an advisory group. You want to be sure you have a multi-sector governing council with very strong, high-profile individuals who, with the help of staff, can keep players engaged and on track. Leadership is absolutely key, and we've been very fortunate to have individuals such as Commissioner Gibbons at the helm of our effort, and with the private sector operating chairman who leads the efforts in bringing in funding for the organization. So they're like a tag team. Resources are also necessary for this model. Resources are needed to convene meetings with stakeholders, to develop the plan, implement the plan, analyze data, provide training, and provide reports as needed. Top leadership can only do so much. We really need individuals in the field who are willing to implement the plan. In fact, we recommend that top leaders and those in the field sit at the same table and work hand in hand. You must have them engaged, so at the end of the day, we can produce the results over time and take responsibility for leading the assigned action items. In our plan, we have 69 action items, and each action item has an accountable partner. And at the end of the 5-year period, they will be held accountable for the results. It also takes someone like a Mayor Wharton and a Blair Taylor who are very devoted to the work we do on the board. Not only just attending board meetings, but also being our advocates in the field and helping us to leverage and reallocate resources in the community to support our various action items. The success of this model, then, is also based on a research partner. And I think you heard earlier how important data is. Well, this is a data-driven plan, so everything we do is supported by data. And so to have a successful model, you really need a research partner. In Memphis and Shelby County, we work with the University of Memphis, but there are others across the state who also have lent their support. Finally, what keeps us all going is the willingness of the Operation Safe Community stakeholders to work together and to share, to really embrace this notion of collective impact, that together we can accomplish more than any one of us can individually. Our model is successful today because collectively we know that Memphis and Shelby County can be safer, and thus so can Tennessee. I'd now like to bring up Blair Taylor real quickly to just talk about a few challenges that we have faced.
We were going to skip this bill if we needed to on time. Just very quickly, we thought we'd highlight a couple of the challenges. This is hard work. It is challenging. Michelle does a fantastic job with her team in pulling all this together. It's one of the challenges that I'll just quickly speak to. Let's see if I can find my challenges slide. Commitment of time and resources. You heard Michelle say in this new plan we have 5 goals, 26 strategies, and 69 action items. Each one of those 69 action items has its own action plan and team of people working it and implementing it. The breadth of this plan is important, and it means that we have really broad community engagement, and we have a lot of sort of arms linked together working this plan. There are no silver bullets. There is only silver buckshot, as I like to quote that in thinking about this collective action initiative. But in the midst of all this, it is critical to prioritize. There is limited time, limited resources. Prioritization is important. So balancing this plan breadth and sort of broad community engagement with prioritizing, I'd say is probably our biggest challenge, and we do it medium to well. We're in the process of identifying and really honing our priorities right now. And really most of these other challenges, the sustainability for key action items, very much related to prioritization. We have a lot of initiatives that are on the smaller scale, and also some initiatives that are doing really well, but the funding is only for a time-limited period. So the sustainability and the scalability, I know I don't need to tell you all that that is always a challenge, and it speaks to prioritization, the things that are really working and that are really sort of meeting the test of the metrics and the data. Those are the things that you have to ultimately prioritize for sustainability funding and for resources. And then Mayor Wharton has spoken beautifully about the challenge of leaders moving out. We've had changes in our DA, we've had changes in both of our mayors, we've had changes in our sheriff, we've had changes in our U.S. attorney. But because of this structure and having made it programmatic and sort of grounded in a plan, we've been able to really sort of weather those changes. And I think really I'll close with that. And thank you for letting us be here. And honestly, we wouldn't be here without General Gibbons, whose leadership has really made Operation Safe Community possible, quite honestly. He has been an incredible leader in Memphis and Shelby County, and we are so pleased that Governor Haslam has sort of given him the pulpit to sort of do across the state what he's done so well in Shelby County. So thanks to all of you all, and thanks to Commissioner Gibbons.